Good, good, good. Double digits. Oh baby. Yeah. It's gonna lose some impact if you keep it. We're at episode 207. No one ever thought we're gonna get here. To be fair, 207. I've been impressed, but yeah. Hmm. How's everything on your end? House hunt. Horrible, dude. Jesus. Yeah. 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 Um. What are they? What like loosely? What factions are they for? We can. What I can hear. I don't know about.
Reset you. There we go. That looks like it's working now. Sorry, guys. All I did was talk about how I was complaining about I'm buying a house and how difficult it is to buy a house, and we got our first rejection letter. Apologies for that, guys.
And he was slightly sick.
Yeah, and oh yeah, and I was slightly sick, but I'm all better now. But yeah, apologies for that, guys. Technical difficulties as usual on Skill Issue. It's in the name. You could have expected by now.
As well. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. My week has been good, been busy, but that is yeah, basically it. Haven't had enough time to play 40k, so that is the main thing. Is I need to get some more 40k games in. How about yourself, Tate? How have you been?
Good. I've also been slightly sick, but less busy, so less of a excuse. Yeah, I've been very busy doing things that I enjoy doing, like
Mm,
40k. Nothing as strenuous as house hunting.
yep.
Yeah, so I've just discovered on the weekend that a tournament I'm going to in a few weeks is GW terrain. So I've
Ooh.
started practicing on that. And we've had a few horrible experiences with realizing the angles are way more open. There's some crazy like I played against Thousand Suns last night, and I was obviously screaming the Scarab Occult Terminator brick. And I got a Forge Fiend come out of Strat Reserve and then surge into an angle where it killed the Tormentors screening my backfield. I was like, brother, like, I guess we're screening with Noise Marines.
It's so good.
Um, yeah, so that was an experience, but that board was like fucked. Like it's one of the ones where the board doesn't like match the deployment.
Yeah.
So there's just angles everywhere. Um, we managed to claw it back just, but yeah. So that's kind of been me.
Nice.
Playing a bit of GW, getting quite a few games in. Yeah,
Are you gonna play
trying to put in
the Fulgrim EC list since it's GW?
to consider. I don't actually have Fulgrim though, so that's a bit of a spanner in the works there.
Yeah.
The other thing I really want to do is play Carnival. One of
Ooh.
my mates does play demons, so there is a world where I can borrow the rest of the list. I don't think Carnival is as good on GW though, because I think GW wants to play more princes because they just give you an ability to exist in the open, and the
Yep.
princes don't get a whole heap from Carnival. Other than you can make them neg one to hit, which is sort of
I
fun,
think
but
AOC is
like
better though, right? Like,
AC is better and mortal wound protection is much better. Um, so they are just net worse because they do less damage.
yeah.
Enhancements aren't great on them.
Yeah, when they start getting coda rebuffs, they literally just kill anything. Like, it's nuts.
Sort of like they kill anything below T8.
Yeah, sure, yeah. They don't kill. You have Morphines for a reason, right?
Yeah, or even a Morphine is like if a Morphine hits something with AOC, it's just like what
Mm.
of no.
AP2A.
Maybe two.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like strength 14 is a commodity in EC, so
Yep.
it's still
Yep.
still good.
Still good.
Yeah. Yeah, but like the everything else with coterie buffs goes crazy.
Mm.
Yeah, so my other option is Final Day because I think there's some funny GW boards where gargoyles basically teleport from being untouchable to smothering your objective, which is quite fun when that's like quite a big open distance for other armies to cover. Just being able to do that continually is
Yep.
sort of good. And I haven't put GSC on the table in a little while, so maybe I'll play that. My concern is there's quite a few good players going that I know will be playing Templars, and the Repix Overwatch is not the friend of Gargoyles. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a not ideal game. Surely EC is probably better into the Black Templars.
it depends how many, because like my mate who I play a lot of normally plays 3 Repixes, which is at the point where you just put your stuff inside the Repixes and you just put all the Repixes out.
Yeah.
And EC, you can't kill 3 Repixes
Yeah.
if they're just going in places before you have buffs. But I imagine the 2 Repix game is way better for EC. Yeah.
Yeah. You actually want
Uh,
them to have more stuff, which is a weird thing to say,
yeah.
but like genuinely, like yeah.
Yeah. And then the Repixes are like their kind of, well, Sword Bros can kill a Demon Prince if they get the +1 EP strat. But
Yep.
the Repixes can scam Demon Princes as well, quite nicely. But yeah, that's me.
Nice. And that event's in a couple of weeks' time, is it?
I think a couple of weeks. It might actually be closer to a month. I
Oh,
might
okay.
be it's in 3.5 weeks. Yeah.
Geez, so it's like right before Christmas. Interesting. Like second
Yeah.
week of December.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm.
That'll be cool. It's always fun when you have like a bit of time, especially on a different terrain format, having a bit more time to like actually like lock down your list. Because I remember when we played on GW and we literally looked at a board for probably 5 minutes. We're just talking to each other and just like staring at the board, being like, "The fuck is this?" I was like,
Months board was insane.
"Yeah,
Like deploying rock grinders near my backboard edge because they just like die. Otherwise, it's like
yeah, nah,
to be
it's
fair, that was my mistake because I just didn't read the players back. Like I turned up and I was like, oh, we designed this list for WTC. Whoops.
yeah." Luckily, I was playing just like trash ACDC spam, but like, which was fine on GW. But to be fair, like, yeah, I didn't really think that it would impact the list as much as it did. And then I was like, oh wow, like the Predators were amazing because like firing lines everywhere. But like,
Yeah.
there was only like one good staging point in each terrain, each map for ACDC, which made it quite difficult because it's like, how do I like send them all out? Because the whole idea of that army at the time was just to like kind of swamp your opponent. So one of them was always kind of just like in the open, which was just not ideal. But yeah, I digress. That was a long time ago now.
Yeah. I think your other issue on thing about our board was there's nowhere that like once the ACDC are out, like once they're out, they're dead.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're
Especially if they
just
fail that
getting
battle shock.
yeah. Yeah, but that wouldn't happen.
Never. Not against a plebeian like you. God.
Sure.
um, But yeah, with that, then I guess there's no tournaments this week, so we have no tournament coverage. So apologies for that, but we do have some spicy material this week to talk about, which I thought was something just that's a bit different, but a bit more interesting. Is we're going to be talking about intent in 40k. It's this like big buzzword that you hear all the time. It's like, oh, like the great players play with intent, but not a lot of people actually talk about playing with intent. Like they say, like, oh, that was a great show of intent, but they don't actually kind of explain the do's and don'ts of it and kind of just go through like what it is, how to communicate it, what are the bad sides of it, what are the negatives of it, and like where does it end, like how much intent can you put, like all these kind of things are important like levels to like learn, and they are different. Like Tate and myself will probably have a different amount of like intent that we would want to play in a game, and it's why it's really important to have like a conversation at the start of a game about, hey, what's like, how are we going to play this game? Like, are we good with this? Are we good with that? Like, I want to play a game with intent. And then usually over the first round of a game, you kind of gauge each other's like how much they want to use intent and how it's going to play into a game. What are your kind of thoughts on like the basics of intent, Tate?
I think it's like you raise a real interesting point about it's such a well, you raise a point that is kind of like commonly canvassed, right? Because it's such a subjective thing that
Yeah.
like it's almost like a necessary evil, right? Because with the game being, you're playing an in-person game, it's really hard to have the preciseness of something like TTS consistently enough to
Yep.
play the game 100% by the rules 100% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very hard to actually achieve that, especially when you're playing on a clock in a tournament, that kind of thing. And
Yep.
then intent goes a long way to smoothing that over. But with it being such a subjective thing, it's with people having different opinions of how it should be played, how much it should be played, if you should even do it at all, you can run into scenarios where sort of someone gets burned by it, especially I've heard a lot of newer players or players that play in different, because I think in the circles we play in, it's quite commonly accepted,
Mm-hmm.
playing by intent, and I've heard you know stories of people sort of getting intent weaponized or that kind of thing. So I think it's a really interesting thing to talk about, the sort of degree to which it should be utilized. um,
Yeah, it's it's actually very complicated for something that's supposed to simplify the game. It actually adds like a bunch of like social contracts to the game. It already is very social contract based. So it's like
yeah
also like an awkward thing to start like using is like, especially like if you're not used to it, right? Like if you're used to playing these games where everything's tight, where your models are is exactly where they are and nothing will change that. It is like obviously your models still matter where they are, but there is like a little bit more flexibility.
yeah yeah, for sure. And I think there's also that interesting sort of, it's like the line between an intent and a take back is very thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's an interesting thing to get into, I guess. So I think the first thing that I do, we want to go through like how you would want to play a game by intent, because I think
Mm.
all the games we've played have been very much played by intent, but I
Yeah.
think like it'd be interesting to talk about like your ideal game by intent, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Let's
Or like,
so start with me. So like what would be my envision of my perfect game of intent?
mm,
Sweet. I will explain the game that I played against Logan at the Tactical Chili Team Championships because I think that was a great and the perfect level of intent that I like to play with. And it started right before even we set up the clock. It was literally as we were like setting up the terrain for the game. And we're like, hey man, it's like I know how you know how I like to play, right? It's like, and then it kind of explained a little bit about like I like to play, like I like to make sure like I don't get got by anything, and I'll make sure that anytime that you don't understand anything of mine, I'll make sure that you understand. Like, hey, I'm trying to screen, like I'm going to put these here to screen this, but like, hey, actually no, I have fly, or I can move over models, or something like that. Like making sure that both of us are caught on those kind of things. A quick thing, Tate. Can you mute your Discord because it's pinging the Discord pings?
it was distracting me for quite a while in our opening. Yeah, I wasn't able to figure out which Discord it was. I think I've got it. I've
Beautiful,
muted a few of
beautiful.
them.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like we kind of talked about that, like as we were just like setting up for the game, and then it was just really chill. There was this very short, maybe 30-second conversation before we'd even set up models, and then it was just, it was what it was. I was setting up some commandos, and I was like, hey, if your big knight's right there behind this ruin, and if you move, can you touch this piece? He's like, hey, actually, I could touch over here because he just had some spare bases. Which for knights players, please bring spare bases for your models. It makes everything so much easier. I actually think
We'll just,
personally, what was that, Tate?
no, nothing. I'm just shit talking nights. We can
All right.
we can gloss over it. Continue.
What I think is, I actually think like if you have any spare like bases for all, any model size, you should like have a few of them. Like, have some spare 32s, have some spare 40s, 60s, whatever. Like especially ones that are a bit more awkward, like the Demon Prince bases. If you could have a spare one of those, just so you can plop it down. Like sometimes you have like one in reserve, so you can use that for like positioning, like stuff like that can be nice. But just having those spare bases, it stops like so much like awkwardness that can happen in a game and makes like explaining your intent a lot easier, which like that can be half the hurdle when it comes to intent, is explaining what you're actually trying to do and then showing that it's, you know, physically possible. So that's kind of it there. But yeah, that was basically the game. And then throughout the game, there's a couple of things that came up. Like he moved some, Logan moved some Nurglings forward, and I was like, you know, I was like, he moved them up to move block, and I was like, by the way, like you can, I can move through models with Gaz's unit. He's like, okay, cool. Nope, they stay back. Like, awesome. And then he did a few with me, especially right at the end of the game. It was my turn 5. I went first, and I was like, there's no way you can score a 15, right? But it was on hidden supplies. Hidden supplies, yeah, with the extra objective, and one knight can hold 2 objectives, which is something I had forgotten at the time because it only comes up on that one mission now because we don't play the ritual anymore. So it just blanked my mind. I was like, but he didn't even say that. He just said, yes, I can hold the 15. And I rate that is actually like the perfect amount of intent. It's like, yes, I can do this. And then if I probably could have just asked and he would have told me exactly. But I was like, it gives me the moment to be like, hey, okay, how does he do this? Because if it's just a game state thing, it's actually, well, one, it's more fun for me to figure it out. I had like 20 minutes left on my clock, so I had like plenty of time going into my like 5th turn. So I was like, ooh, how does he do this? And I was like, then I asked him, I was like, Logan, can one knight hold 2 objectives? And he just like smiles at me. Like, this is not ideal. But then I had a sweet play where I had to move a truck forward, charge a unit of Nurglings, and then I could position the truck with the charge move so that it was blocking that part of the objective. So he would have to charge the truck to get on, but that means he couldn't shoot the truck with his one double Gatling knight, and then the melee doesn't kill it. And because I blocked where the knight could finish his move, I was like, haha, so you have to kill me in melee.
Yeah. Nice.
So, but that's kind of the level for me that I love. Just like, you know, being able to just like make sure you're playing your game as best as you can and making sure you're helping your opponent play the best game that they can do. That's kind of how I enjoy having intent.
Yeah. I'd say for me, very similar. I think it important. A couple of things, which I'm sure you also believe, but just didn't point out, is like working collaboratively on like game I played last night. My opponent was playing Thousand Suns and had held the 10 Scarab Occult Terminators in reserve, so they're coming down somewhere. Wood screening. You know, one of the things about playing by intent is you don't want to stretch intent into I'm intending to do this thing that isn't actually possible. You know, like I'd lost a backfield screening unit, so maybe screening my backfield completely wasn't actually possible. So I had to state that my intent is to screen my backfield, and we both went and helped pre-measure to figure out like what the extent I could actually do that to was. And it turned out that I could, but we needed to sort of finagle some stuff. And I think that's like another. And I think the WCW games from Stream, like Liam VSL games in particular, are like a really good example of, you know, like threat ranges, like pre-measuring threat ranges for opponents and stuff, that kind of stuff as well. Because if you state that your intent is to stay outside of a threat range, an opponent probably should, at least in my mind, help, you know, by at least pointing out or showing what threat ranges are, because being able to actually do something is part of intent. And I guess the flip side of that though is if you state that your intent is to do something, say like, because last night I was playing on GW terrain with the 1-inch wall blocking, which is something I'm not super used to. Don't particularly want to lift up the ruin and get my 1-inch little widget for all my guys, so I've told my opponent that I'm trying to stay 1 inch off this wall, and if, you know, what I would expect based off our pre-game discussion is that if I had one model that was slightly within an inch, he's happy for me to nudge it back because I had clearly told him that I'm trying to do that. The flip side, I think, where people sometimes run into murky waters or creates feel bad moments is if you don't say that's what you're trying to do, and then they go for the charge and you don't warn them that you're doing that. They've lined up the charge, they make the charge, and you go, oh, actually, I was trying to do this. You know, that's like so I think communication is one of the most important things with playing by intent, is you can't just claim intent retroactively, I think is the yeah.
There's a spot with that I want to talk about, but I think it's on. I have a couple of slides from the questions that you sent me. And the first one was what
Yeah.
is intent, which I think we've broken down well. But there's a point that I want to get to, but it's on one of the later questions, so I'll bring it up then. But you
Yeah.
stepped on something about weaponizing intent. Like you didn't bring it up, but it made me think about like your intent is to stay an inch away from the wall, but you can actually just like often you see the people and they've shoved their models up against the wall, and they're like, okay, so I can't charge you, you know, because it is what it is, right? Just trying to play a bit quicker. But then when you go to your movement phase, you move them from where they are. So you're gaining that inch. So like, that's a way of like being able to weaponize intent, right? Like, which we'll get to later. But it was just like, since we're talking about it now, I thought it was interesting to bring up.
That's what I mean by if you state that your intent is to do something, you both players should work collaboratively to ensure that you're actually making a best effort to represent that on the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah. Intent isn't this magical wand that makes you play better. Like you actually have to actually have to play the game properly, and it's just a way of being like, hey, like if this model gets nudged, or hey, just so we don't have to spend 5 minutes, millimeter perfect measuring this unit, can you just say like, hey, they're basically an inch away from the wall, we're happy with that, awesome. Or hey, I'm off this angle, you know, are you happy with me being off this angle? Yeah, sweet, awesome, they'll just stay there then, and we can move on to the next thing. So then I guess that leads on to how do you communicate intent? What is your do you have a pre-game ramble that you talk to your opponent with, like, or maybe even if that's not the case, like when you go to talk about intent, like hey, like you're trying to do a certain thing, how do you approach your opponent with that?
I do have a bit of a pre-game ramble. It's probably not the best because I can it's not very. I think what we've discussed here is the importance of being clear, and it's a bit vague. Like if I turn up and I'm playing a game that's I guess the issue that I perhaps fall foul of is I'm either playing, at least in the New Zealand scene, I'm playing someone that's quite competitive and likely someone that I know and I have the relationship with where we don't, it's understood that we're playing by intent and we're both going to be happy to, like figure that out as it goes. Whereas if I'm not playing someone that I know or someone less competitive, perhaps earlier on in a tournament, I'm a bit more happy to just let them take things back and move stuff, and that is kind of what my pre-game ramble is. That if you clearly fuck something up, and we know you had, like if you don't drop your deep strike unit and you had established locus, and it gets to my command phase, I'm happy for you to do it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. And I think that that is kind of like helpful for the opponent. Is not the most clear. It's not a set of clear parameters. Like I'm happy for you to take stuff back to an extent is quite vague.
I
So it's
think
probably
that's half the issue with intent and why like there's like this kind of very gray cloud. It's not a dark cloud and it's not a light cloud, right? It's this very gray cloud. It's very murky, right? It's not bad murky, it's not good murky. It's just kind of this place where like you want to help your opponent, but there's also like such a limit where it's like, okay, now I'm just playing their game for them as well, right? Like if you let them take everything back, because I think a take back is very different to necessarily intent. Like if their intent was to like make sure they're outside of 9, I wouldn't say it's a take back if you move your models like, hey, they're actually within 8 inches, nudge them back a little bit and we'll be good. That's not a take back. That's just making sure that the intent was actually clear of what the applicability there was. But yeah, so like, whereas like a take back is like, oh, I shouldn't have shot that unit because now you star engine and you missiled away or something, like, like whatever the older ability is to move in the shooting phase, whatever it is. But like, like, oh, like, that's a full take back, right? Like,
yeah.
So stuff like that is like, where do you draw the line there? That's actually a very difficult conversation to have, and like it's kind of fair but unfair at the same time. When you talked about if it's a newer player, you give them some more takebacks, because also the only way you learn is to like not get got by these things, but like you explained what that thing is, but and then they decided to still do it. Is that worth a take back then? Like, so like where does that kind of sit?
And I think you've actually led me to like an interesting other, because I think something we didn't touch on when we were sort of defining intent is reciprocity. You have to both, because we've all had the game where like I have like from my first teams tournament, I have this. Don't don't know if the guy still plays. I couldn't tell you if it was like the person is gone from my mind, but it was Eldar with like 3 Wraith Lords, 3 Wraith Seers, and Nightbed. And
Yeah.
like I let the guy like move where he'd deep strike something to do an action, and then
Mm.
it got to like his. I don't think command phase existed. Oh, it did exist in Night, but start of his turn, and I was like, oh, and obviously these Zangors on my home that have done nothing would have raised a banner, which is an action in Night, so you had to like
Yeah.
declare the action. He's like, sorry, mate, timing's gone, and I was like, brother,
Yeah.
like, what
Brother.
the
Yeah.
yeah. So we've all had that. So I think another thing is that if you're playing by intent, you're either both playing directly rules as written handoff model, it's moved, or you're
Mhm.
both playing by intent. And I think if you have that sort of like vague conversation where the parameters aren't clearly defined and you're like, I'm happy for you to move stuff as well, then it's like, how does that play out for you? You know, like if it's in a situation where there's at least a perceived skill disparity, and I've told my opponent I'm happy for them to have some degree of takebacks,
Yep.
then you know what happens when I fuck something up or I
Yeah.
forget about one of their abilities. Like it's just very unclear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And it's like I never feel bad. Like whenever I don't usually ask for takebacks, but like if it's like, oh, do you mind if I do this instead of like, oh, do you mind if I put one model on this point because obviously I need to have like some OC on this or something like that. If my opponent ever says no, I'm like, that's cool, sweet, and like I won't move the model, I won't put that model on there. But then from that point onwards, it is an even playing field both ways, right? Like I'm usually like the absolute giver. I'll give out, I'll throw candy every which way. If you want to take something back, if you want to remove that wave serpent, if you want to go over there, if you want to, oh, do you actually not want to do your reactive move there? That's fine. Like I'm very very generous in that regard. But as soon as you don't let me do something, it's just like a guillotine comes down and like, nope, cool, that's it. That's all you get. I was like, if you're not giving me the same respect that I'm giving you, then like it's just it has to be a two-way street.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. It's a hard thing to like talk about because like you can even say like, hey, the odd take back totally fine, but like the odd take back is like, oh, this person didn't move, didn't raise a banner or something like that. That's fine. Didn't start terraforming on an objective that they could. It's probably a bit more relevant for 10th edition. But they just had a unit of intercessors on. I was like, oh yeah, you might as well have just started that. If they say no to that, I'm like, well, they didn't shoot, they didn't do anything. Like, like that's. I'm
yeah,
almost to the point in that game where I'm like, I'm just gonna tick it on on tabletop battles and just be like, I get it.
it's
Like,
like the old give someone defense from hold return early because there's no way you
yeah,
stop it kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly. Like, yeah, but yeah, it can be tricky. But I think the most important thing, I think what both of us are kind of just trying to say here is just keep talking to your opponent about it. Like, don't just assume that you're going to get takebacks, but keep it like the reason that most 40k players, especially the competitive ones, they completely lose their voice on day 2 or day 3 of a tournament is because they're constantly talking about what they're doing in their game, as well as then gassing with their opponent, like when they're not talking specifically about the game. So it's like you end up just talking for like 8-9 hours basically straight. So like, and that's kind of what's really important is don't have this master plan and then keep everything to yourself. Because yes, you're keeping like your strategy hidden, but then if your opponent doesn't know what you're trying to do, they can't like if you have done messed up something, then it's
Yeah, it's
kind of
like
on you.
both ways, right? Like if you don't let your in, even if your opponent has the best of intentions, if you
Mhm.
don't let them in on your plan, they can't tell you. Like if you had never, if you had been playing KG with Logan
Yeah,
and you hadn't asked him that question, I mean, like Logan's a great sport, so perhaps not the best example, but
yeah.
you know, if you'd been playing KG with evil anti Logan, he might not have brought that up. Yeah, no gal.
uh,
Is that no, it didn't. Nagel.
okay, wait. The name is not the important part here.
But yeah, like
Yeah,
that's your insurance policy is gone if you don't let your opponent in
yeah,
on the plan. And
exactly.
I think another good way of doing it is getting your opponent to agree because I think that is the point where if you go I've put 6 OC on this. You have 5 OC on this. Is there any way you can flip your OC in your command
Yep.
phase? If it gets bumped, like I have placed 6 OC on here. You
Yep.
can see it here. They go, yes, you have. Or you pre-measure the angle. You go, can you confirm you can't go there? Yes, I confirm that. Like I had that seminar recently at a tournament. I was playing Chaos Cult. We pre-measured the Predators. He agreed that one of them couldn't get a line on my Noise Marines, and then he moved it up and he was like, I'm going to shoot your Noise Marines. And I was like, we pre-measured all that. You said that you couldn't, and he was like, yes, so I did. I must have moved half an inch too far. Like, so if you have that conversation beforehand, and if there is agreement between the players, then you can't have those awkward, or you shouldn't have those awkward sort of interactions.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's where like the social contract side of it comes up a little bit, and you have to be able to speak your voice when that happens. Like models do get nudged. That's just 40k. Like we're not playing a perfect game. Like a piece of terrain will get knocked over, and then all the models around it will be moved half an inch. But if you've already measured, hey, this model can't get this line or whatever, and then it happens, then just tell your opponent, like, hey, like remember we measured that, so that can't happen. And then if they try and argue it, that's probably when you just have to call a TO and be like, hey, this is what we agreed upon beforehand. But it's also very awkward because when you're talking to a TO about intent, this is like, again, I'm going forward on the slides here, but the TO side of it is really, really convoluted as well when it comes to intent. The WTC have a huge thing about intent, and it's fairly good, but like, and also I think people at the WTC don't really try and weaponize intent in any way or anything like that, because they want to be playing with that way as well. But it's a really awkward thing if you call someone who's like, hey, I said this, and then the other person, all they need to say is like, no, I agreed to this, not that, and like it's completely gone.
Unless you have like a coach at the table, or like,
yeah, but what if the coach is on your side? Like it's it's there's still biases.
Yeah, that's crazy. Coach from it, you get the coach that's like from the other teams scouting out your strategy, and then they get the
yeah. But the thing is, it becomes real awkward in that that situation. It's real tough. But I think what you have to do is you have to stand strong. Like I've heard of quite a few of my good friends that have had stuff like that come up with like, hey, if I'm on this line, that tank cannot see this unit because that's like the loss condition. And they're like, yep. And then on the next turn, they move that tank. Like, I'm going to go shoot that. Then I was like, no. We already declared this. This tank, you agreed, cannot get to this line. And you were like, and they said, yes, we agreed, that cannot happen. And it was just, and then they've just put their foot down and just said, this is how it works. This is what we agreed upon. If you're saying that you're on that line, I will now move my model to make sure that we are safe. Like that's kind of what that point gets to. And you just got to be firm. Like it's one of those times it's not going to be a fun time. Like there's always going to be like that awkward time. It's like when you roll like, oh, I have 6 shots with sustained hits, and you roll 5 6s. You're like, sorry, bro. Like, someone's going to feel bad here. Like it's just the opposite there, right? Like there's a little bit of tension, but like a little bit of tension isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if you can go into it, being positive, not trying to be like a rude person about it, and just be like, hey, like this is how we like sorted this out. You agreed. If you say that model can get there, I'm going to be moving this model to make sure that we're still in an agreed upon state. That's like important.
Yeah. To be honest, like even because I think I might have been a bit negative at the start with the point I was trying to make about the whole weaponizing intent thing is that I was looking at shutting off discords, and then afterwards I was like, oh, I kind of gave a bad spiel about intent. But the point I'm more making is that like, as long as there's clear communication, then the weaponizing intent is something that comes up a lot less than people that might have had bad experiences with intent would think. And I think just kind of to go to that, you said that sometimes that putting your foot down conversation can be awkward. Not so much in my experience, to be honest, like other than, like 1 or 2 instances that come to mind where me and my opponent have had consensus about whether or not something can happen, and then they've gone to try and do it, and I've reminded them that we agreed it couldn't happen. It's been like perfect every time. It's been like, oh, yep, my bad, we did agree that. So it's
yeah.
like when played by 99% of people, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I've only had like I think one issue in my games where someone's come up to like we've been playing a game and they have disagreed with the intent post date. Like nothing else had changed, and then they disagreed with something. Every other time they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and I've done it as well. It's like, "Hey, like this is now an 8-inch charge." Like, "Oh, remember we agreed it's a 9?" It's like, "Yeah, sure, sweet, cool, it's a 9." Like it's like, it happens both ways. We nudge our models. We like I was going to say a very naughty male derived joke about inches, but I won't go there. Um, but yeah, like we don't know what our measurements are sometimes, and like there's parallax error and stuff like that. We're not all Liam VSL that gets perfect TTS view every time they play a game, so there is that as well.
It's as close to it as a lot of our WTC team members are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy that I'm 6'3" and I felt short the year that I went to WTC.
Yes, but they can't. 6'3" got to be around the average height of the team, right? Like you can't
Average height, yes, but we had Jonty and Charlie.
Oh yeah, Johnny and Charlie. Yeah.
Yeah, they are on the shorter side. So yeah, but when you have Cam, Finn, and Michael, it's like the average height gets pumped up. It's like it's weird because usually I'm always like the one that gets like the extra leg room in a seat, whereas like there's like 3 other people that got it before me. It's like, oh man, this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm 6'2", and the international flights without leg room bad. Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. Oh boy, yeah. But so I guess traveling on, going on from that though. So what is weaponizing intent? So what do you describe as weaponizing intent?
Every time I play a game against you.
Yeah.
No. I think it's the maliciously. It's hard to define, but I'd say it's maliciously bending or exploiting that social contract to gain an advantage. Like, kind of as we discussed, if I had put my models right hard up against a wall and I'd been like, yeah, they're 2 inches away. Intent is that they're 2 inches away. Or I put them right up and I say nothing and you go to charge me and I go, oh, no, they're 2 inches away. And I've never sort of discussed it. And, like one or maybe even 2 instances of that could just be a mistake. A few games into the tournament, I forgot to state my intent. And I guess that is something that players need to sort out between themselves. But I would say that, if you're repeatedly doing something like that, like you say, it is a game of inches, and you're gaining extra inches.
Yep.
Yeah, or like an example that no name shall be named, but an example from a friend of mine is that a friend had done to them is consistently stating that you are outside of 9 to avoid reactive moves, but consistently being well within 9 and just saying that your intent is to do that. And that is I would say that was a clear example of weaponizing intent, sort of consistently trying to get around rules, but just by stating that your intent is to not have that. There's kind of the old joke of my intent is to win that everyone always pulls out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I think that one is one where it's like, again, and you said this really well, which is intent is both ways, it's reciprocal, but you also do it together. Like, it's not, I say this is law. This is, I'm saying this, check me. Cool, we're good. Intent is, like, intent has to be checked by both players, basically, most of the time. There will be times where, like, hey, I'm trying to be an inch away from the wall. I'm like, yeah, go for it, King. You're fine. But there's other times where I'm like, you're trying to be 9 inches away from here, and yeah, you're 7.5, and I'm gonna be like, dude, like that guy needs to go back a bit further. Same thing as like I'm trying to string out like a unit, like a 10-man unit to cover a bunch of area, and then like my intent is to screen this entire area with this one unit, but then your models are like 3.5 inches apart, and you're like, dude, like coherency is a thing in this game.
I've had a well-known player do that versus me. I was playing GSC, Host of Ascension, so it was relevant, and they were screening their backfield with like 3.5-inch coherency. I was like, no, that's
yeah. And like, okay, this is an interesting one for you though. An interesting question, not necessarily about weaponizing. It's intent in general, but it kind of goes to the weaponizing side a little bit, where it's like, can you make sure that my backfield is completely screened out? If your opponent says that to you, how do you feel about that?
If they want me to check their screening,
Yep.
I think that's fine because I think that is kind of within the realm of, you might be like, what's your it's you're asking your opponent to explain to you what their army is capable of.
Yep.
Like if you're saying, because it's tantamount to like, can you get something in my can you rapid ingress in my backfield?
Yep.
Like that is a question your opponent should answer truthfully. Like you say with Logan, they don't have to explain how. Well, I mean, they have to explain rules, how they get there. They don't have to explain what they're going to do.
Yep.
But sorry, I think is it me that's breaking up, or is it you that's breaking up?
I'm hearing you fine, so it might be on your end potentially.
I think it's just my image of you. I think I can hear you fine, but yeah. So I think that's fine. Like if it's kind of a pre-measuring thing, you go,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it can be an issue sometimes when again, like I'm very chill when it comes to this. If someone's like, hey, can you come in your backfield? Like I'll just walk around with my tape measure or a 9-inch stick and just be like, that's sweet, we're good, cool. I'll even usually grab like whatever unit they care about. Like if it's a unit of 5 idiots, not really the most important thing, but if it's like 6 inceptors or something like that, like cool, let's actually like make sure that this doesn't fit anywhere. I'll just grab the models, but cool, doesn't fit here, cool, doesn't fit there. This would be all on their time if the game is on a clock, because if they're asking me to check this for them, it doesn't get put on my time to show them where I could put my unit. It's on their time to make sure, because it's still in their movement phase. I'm just trying to help them. The issue that I've only come into it once, but it just kind of made me thought about it, is my opponent actually asked me, like, oh, can you help me actually move the models so I do screen everything? And I'm like there's a I want to help you, but like I also don't want to play your game for you.
Yeah, the craziest one I've had is I've had someone tell me that, oh, can we just assume my backfield is screened? And I was like, you have one unit left, and it's all in like a ball, like it's all touching, it's base to base with itself. I was like, no, we cannot assume your backfield. I am happy to work with you to screen your backfield, but we're not assuming that it is screened based off that.
Exactly.
Moving your opponent's models is like, if I was playing my friend, maybe, which is like another, here's like a semi-spicy, like, nah, actually that's kind of off topic. I was gonna say, like, is it, if you are giving more leeway in a tournament to your mates with that kind of stuff,
See, like, this is where I differ. I give everyone the same, like, I start everyone on the same page, and it's like, it kind of just like deducts more the less chill they are with me, because I want every game to be the best vibes possible. Like, I don't want to play a single game of 40k where it's like bad vibes. So like, I'll give everyone every take back that they want, but and then like as soon as they're like, oh, check that, oh okay, cool, and like everything, like it's like start at 100% and like it just kind of goes down to like, and then it'll stop and it'll be like cool, like, and it'll be like 80% of where I'm normally at, cool, and that's where we play the rest of the game, and we'll both be at that level. It's like I'm very chill usually when I get into a game, and there will be certain things that I'm tight on, like, hey, like I measured that, made sure you can only get to this point. This is where I measured that you could get to, and there'll be some things that I'll be a bit hard on, but for the most part, I'm pretty chill when I'm playing. But yeah, it's kind of like, that's how I play, no matter whether it's a friend or someone that I haven't played against before. And it's kind of part of my spiel. It's like, hey man, I'm real chill. Let me know what you're trying to do, and I'm gonna help you try and do it. Like, it's kind of how.
I just thought this. I am not saying that I will give preferential treatment to my friends in tournaments, even though Chris has received the benefit of that preferential treatment in all of our games. No, kidding. I just more mean that touching an opponent's models, if you know them, is perhaps a bit more kosher.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like a practice partner, right? And you're like, hey, we know how you screen your backfield. Do you want me to do it for you? Or like things that happened at the last event that I went to. I was playing against Stephen Morris, and he was like, he had behind enemy lines, and he had a unit of Ophidians. I was like, oh, there's a gap back here, and he's like, oh, like, do you mind putting them there? So I just grabbed his 3 Ophidians And I was like, and I put them so that he had a 9-inch charge both ways. Because like that's what I would want if I was playing him. I'd want the option to 9-inch charge into my home objective or 9-inch charge into the other unit that was supposedly screening
Yeah.
but wasn't. But like there was a gap there, but I placed them in the way that was most beneficial to him. And then I even let him know, like, hey, do you want them all closer to one side or the other? And he's like, no, that's perfect. Awesome. Sweet. Cool. Move on. Like, if they ask you to do something for you, I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, as long as you have that kind of like dialogue of how, you're asking them how they would want you to do it. I had it's kind of different because it's like a friend and it's a TTS game, not a tournament game.
Sure.
But I played a game with Chad once where he disconnected, but his computer went down, but he was on Discord on his phone or whatever, so we were still talking. We just played his whole turn. It was like when chess players like have the board in their mind and they're like Queen E7 and they play like like I was just telling Chad where his models were and he was telling me what he wanted to do. And then I was rolling his dice on TTS and reading out the results. I failed 3 saves. Do you want to? Where's your next activation?
Yeah.
So obviously you can't do something like that. But I think, moving opponents' models, that kind of thing. If you're doing what you said, you put the Ophidians down. You go, do you want a 9-inch charge here or here? Or both if that's possible. Like it just comes back to communication is key kind of thing.
Exactly. And that's really all intent is. It's just making sure that you agree on the communication that you're having. Valkyrie in chat has a really good take on intent. It's like, as a newer player, intent is often around me forgetting/learning. I try to ask if I can correct a mistake before it impacts the game, which is a really great way of looking at intent, I think. Like, hey, like, oh, I made a mistake. I didn't realize that you could do that. Before anything else happens, do you mind if I take it back? Like, you move with a 9 inches of a reactive move unit, and then before they roll the reactive move or do their moves, like, oh, do you mind if I actually don't do that? I forgot about that. Hey, do you mind if I, take that back? Like, stuff like that, I think can be really good and really good for newer players as well. I think intent, everyone thinks intent is just for like the upper echelon of 40k players, but intent helps at every level of 40k, like so much.
Yeah, no, it's very good for learning, and even that kind of stuff. Like in a tournament setting, the first time someone did that, I would probably let them. Like if you move into my reactive move for the first time and you go, oh shit, I didn't want to do that. Probably, unless you're being an asshole, it's probably fine. Like,
yeah. Again, it's vibes based, right? Like if you're being a dick to me, I'm not gonna be generous to you. Like I'm not gonna be a dick back, but like I'm not gonna be nice to you, right? Like there's a level there.
Yeah.
And it also comes down to a lot of like respecting each other. Like you're gonna be locked together for a few hours at minimum. Why not make it chill? Why not just have good vibes?
Why not chaos?
Yeah.
No, your hand is off the model. Get fucked. Overwatch.
Yeah, full on chess vibes. Cool. So I guess then the next question that you had was, where does intent stop?
The second Chris Boss turns up to my table.
That's very true.
That is a very interesting question. Do you mean in terms of when? Like
when does it go too far?
Like, when does it go too far? This is a very hard question. Outside of the kind of the stuff we already talked about like weaponizing or like where it's not reciprocal, I think it's where you're kind of having something both ways. Like it still needs to be a state which can exist on the board, like we're talking about with physically being able to screen or not being able to not trigger a reactive move but still have your 7-inch charge. Like it's those sort of not quite sure what the right word is, but those sort of small things where you can collectively gaining like a few inches here or there, or like, because sometimes those things can be very impactful. Like if you're half an inch off having an angle with your Rogaldorn, that's very binary. Like you either have your turret around the corner and you can see everything, or you don't. And if that would trigger a reactive move, like it's the difference between your unit dying and not. So I think if you're like, it's those things that are very small, but actually can make a big difference, I guess.
I think where intent has to stop is you can't have intent for literally every unit in your army as well. Like most models, when you move them, you should be able to put them to the right position. Like it should only be in the instances where like, hey, like making sure that you're 9 inches out from a reactive move, or hey, I'm within 7 inches for it, so it's a 6-inch charge. Like just like if I move the 6 inches here, then we know that this is going to be this, and then move it to where it should be anyway. But like if you have to do that for every single unit, every single model in your army, there's probably a different issue as well. With like the game as well itself. Like if you're playing against a difficult player, there is probably no end to intent because you want to verbalize literally everything that you're doing. But you shouldn't have to explain exactly your intent for every single unit. Like, hey, I'm an inch off the wall there. Hey, I'm an inch off the wall there. That should be all you need to do with like those units, and it should be, but it should still be obvious when your opponent walks around the table. Oh yeah, sweet. Like,
I should not be touching the wall. Yeah,
exactly right. Like, as much as intent is something to help make the game easier and quicker, you should still be doing your best part to make sure that the board state is actually correct. Like, I think that's where intent needs to stop. Is it isn't just this like like control alt Z key for like take backs, right? Like it's not an answer for sloppy play.
Yeah. Well, that leads on to like a kind of an interesting thing of like you can still be playing by intent, and you know, like if you have the clock time, I would encourage people to still play by intent. Even if you you have placed your model in perfectly the right position, there's still a lot of merit to explaining exactly what you're trying to do because it covers off, all those your opponent now knows about counterplay. They can't be in any doubt as to your rules. They can't hide things from you, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Just make sure both players are on the same page.
Yeah.
Even if I am clear, or like, I'm playing TTS and I am 1.1 inches off the wall, it's still good to explain that I am 1.1, because then we can't have my opponent moves his stuff up expecting to charge me, and then it's an awkward thing of, like at that point I probably have to give him a take back, It's just good to explain.
Yeah, I was saying really good etiquette. There's also a chat from Chad that I'll get to in a second. But I think really good etiquette is even if it's not your turn, but you can see what your opponent's trying to do and they haven't verbalized the intent yet, just ask. Like, hey, are these guys supposed to be an inch away from the wall there? Cool, sweet. Just like if they haven't gone that step, try and like help them along. Maybe they're just like, they're 3 steps ahead trying to already think about where their next unit's moving, and they're just moving this unit to kind of do that time, but they're not verbalized it. Try and help them. Like, it's not going to hurt. If anything, it's just going to make the game go easier because you now know where that unit is supposed to be. Like,
yeah, it helps your own kind of like another. Yeah, I was again doing that last night. Like my opponent's moving stuff back to try and be on the sort of higher roll end of my threat range, and because I have things that reroll versus objectives, I'm like, hey man, I have the thing that rerolls versus objectives. Do you want to be touching that or not? Because you currently are. Like.
Yep. Yep, exactly. So just lots of little things like that. It's like I wouldn't even call that a take back at that point because you're kind of like, and like you're handing out like the olive branch, but like, hey, like you want to do this? Sweet, and then then it's clear. Yes, I want to be on this directive. Or no, that's actually a horrible idea. Let me stay behind this because I can still heroic on or whatever you want to do, right? Like, but you're giving them the correct options. I also think another time where intent should stop is, and this is more for, I guess, newer players, is don't overload them with everything that you can possibly do. Right? Oh, this unit can heroic here, this unit could rapid ingress here, or this unit could rapid ingress here. Because you can overwhelm, especially newer players. Like, more experienced players will be like, hey, you won't do that. That's a horrible move. But but some people, I do see this in games where like they kind of threat project their entire army at their opponent to kind of force them back. And this is also something that I think I talked about in another episode with of Skill Issue is I used to like measure things out just for fun, but like, oh, I could go here, or I could go there, or I could do this.
That weaponized intent.
Yeah, and it's not weaponized. It isn't, because like it's literally, these are all things that I could do, but then I stopped doing that because I realized it made my opponents play differently, and that's not what I want. I don't want to mental game my opponent. I don't want to gain an edge from that. I was doing it more of a joke than anything, but then I realized it was actually causing an issue. But I do see that still happen in tournament games where people are like, oh, remember I can do this. Oh, remember I can do that. And it's like, the odd reminder, awesome. But like reminding every time you're moving a unit, like you're trying to, I feel like you're trying to gain an edge out of that. But before we go any further, because Chad had a great comment, like intent chats really helped me when I was starting to learn good players' thought processes in threat, etc. Was communicated, and I think it was really helped me improve faster. So this is like, because you're explaining everything, your opponent that's a new player, especially in practice games, understands your thought process, so then they can get to that level faster because they can already understand like your own play patterns, which is great. Like that's what we want, like especially in practice games. It's in the name.
No. It implies winning. No, and it kind of leads into what Valkyrie is saying as well, where if you have, you have that discussion about thought process, if you do something and then you discuss what's going to happen, and you can see, okay, that the eventuality of that kind of line of play is this, can I take it back? Kind of it lets you, it's almost like a soft re-rack, right? Like it helps learn that, yeah, just helps learn what plays will result in what different outcomes.
Yeah, Logan also commented the same thing about kind of like weaponizing intent with, it's a little more about weaponizing it, but people can use intent for deceiving other players. I can shoot that unit with my tank if they move there when it might have actually been a good move. It's like, so like, it's one of those things, it's a weird balancing act, right? Like you want to let them know that this is something you can do, but you're not trying to dissuade them or change their mind. It's a very hard balance where like you're trying to be helpful. You're not trying to be that person that's like, ha, but like, where does that go on the spectrum of being friendly or weaponizing?
Yeah, what I quite often try and do with those kinds of things, because like as with a lot of the armies I play, like Gene Stealer Cult, Thousand Suns, EC sort of not so much, but there's a lot of like your threat range is theoretically very high, even if it's like a low percentage play you might not take. So and quite often people will be like, can you get this? Like, and it's very often a thing of yes, but would I? And I kind of assume my opponent is reasonable and assume that they would figure that out by themselves and go, yes, I could technically get that, but it's probably not a play I'm very likely to take, Maybe if I bring it down, but, and just assume they would have reached that conclusion on their own and just explain it, that you probably wouldn't.
Yeah, no, that's actually great as well. Yeah, like as for someone that's trying to like screen out, like I've had it before where like I have like 2 units in Deep Strike, and then from turn 2 onwards they're like throwing their entire army out to block my Deep Strikes, and I was like, and you can kind of be like, are you actually that scared of this unit? Like genuinely, like it would be like 5 Terminators or something that, obviously like it's just, or like a unit of 3 Crisis, it's like this thing, sure it hurts, but do you actually give a fuck about it? like
yeah, at a certain point, yeah, the loss of screening material is just a huge benefit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whereas like I don't even need to deep strike those things now, and now I'm picking up 2 or 3 units for free, especially like if they had to screen in inopportune places, right? If they had to have units out so I could shoot them or whatever. Like trying to like give your opponent advice without giving them advice, like trying to like do like 2 of the 5 steps for them is like, I think that's kind of what you need to try and balance, is like give them like a little bit of information. It's like, do you actually care about this unit's output, or trying to kind of explain again what their output is. And like, because dice can be dice, right? But like, hey, on average this kills 3 Marines. Do you really care if they get to shoot this unit of 10 Marines? Like, you then kill me and then there's a points trade up here, or what have you, like kind of doing that, but like not saying all of that, just being like, hey, this unit only kills like 3 Marines on average, and then just stopping there. So then they have the information of like, oh, what damage this unit does, or like what this could do. Another one that came up quite often for me was when I was playing Retcad, is the move, shoot, move, like, the fire and fade with that Retcad can do. And they're like, oh, this objective is completely safe. And I was like, well, no objectives are completely safe when you have a fire and fade, with like 6 OC, right? So like, because I can move, 12 plus D6 inches, shoot you, and then move another 12 inches. Is like, It's like pretty far. like,
Like
like
the
so.
index T sons like
Yeah.
with Magnus when my opponent's like, can you get this unit? I'm like, look, if I want to, Magnus can get any unit in your army at any point, and there's nothing you can do about it. The question is, you have to ask is, will I trade Magnus for that thing? You know, or
Yes.
like
Yeah.
making sure that it is a trade. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just stop asking me. Yes, he can touch your backboard edge. Like,
Yeah. His spear will swing around 36 times and then be through that window and be
yeah,
able to see you. Trust me.
yeah. Or before they changed Temporal Surge, like the spear didn't even fucking matter. He could just like
Yeah.
move 36 or whatever it was. That is,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's but yeah, so it's like stuff like that. It's like you're trying to give your opponent help, but without giving them not you're giving them all the information, but you're not giving them all the steps to get there, right? Just because you're trying to help them, but you also, again, intent isn't about helping your opponent beat you. It's about helping them play the game that they want to play. I think is a fairly good way of phrasing it.
Yes, yeah, or making sure that the kind of subjective understanding of the board that each player has is as unified and as close as possible, so
Yep.
that you're both kind of, you know, yeah.
Exactly. And that leads on to the last question that you wrote. By the way, Tate wrote all these questions today, so he actually did like he's a professional podcaster now.
Well, this
um,
morning Tate was. I completely forgot we had this.
yeah, it's beautiful. But yeah, the last question is so TOs and dealing with intent. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but like I think there's quite a deep, like, and also like not necessarily well fleshed out answer for this. So it's kind of it's more just like a
Yeah,
talking point than an actual question, right? So what do you think a TO should do when dealing with an intent question?
this is very hard, and I've spoken to Patricio's TO for Tactical Chili on the phone about this kind of incidentally earlier today, and his reading between the lines, because this is full disclaimer, it's not actually what he said to me, but I imagine he doesn't want to touch it really. Like you can all of it, like cheating, bad sort of sportsmanship, bad conduct, bad attitude, those are all things that are much easier to deal with as a TO. Intent, you've already kind of touched upon. If you're not watching the game when the intent is stated, it is just two people both telling their side of the story, and you have no way of sort of corroborating what is correct. So it's
Yep.
super hard to address. Um, I think perhaps an imperfect solution that I have used, not as a TO but as a player, when someone um did something to me that I think was weaponizing intent, was I said, look, there's no way, because there was no sort of discussion and you've now gone and moved all your models, is like, this time I'm going to allow it, because there's like, I have no way of demonstrating that, even though I am very sure that it was not illegal play, I have no way of proving that now.
Yep.
This time it slides, but in future I will need you to demonstrate everything to me, and if you don't, I'm going to assume that it's cheating, and I've clearly stated that. So I think there's maybe some degree of a similar approach that TOs could take, is in the first instance, if you didn't see anything, you kind of have to give benefit of the doubt,
But to
unless
which
like the
side?
player has a yellow. To you, that's hard, but I would I would say you have to assume that the person who is accused of breaking a rule or stretching is not.
Mm.
Um, I think you have to assume that it's either a mistake or that communication broke down and they could have done what they've done, but then you probably have to swing past that table more often, or ask, that in any future sort of they call a judge maybe, instead of coming to try and sort it out by themselves. But it's not a perfect solution. It is tricky. Um, yeah, I actually had a game at a tournament I played quite recently where, this was not done for any kind of breakdown of communication or any disagreement between me and my opponent, because my opponent was actually awesome. We just called TO like 4 or 5 times, rather than we're just like, can you call this?
Mm.
Because it was very close. Time was short. We were sort of getting on well. I guess didn't want to argue over the, we just, judge can just call it kind of thing. Yeah, but it's tricky. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that one. Was this where your lukewarm take comes
Yeah,
from?
my very tepid take, and I think it might be a bit more
Yeah.
than that. Is I think if the players are not in agreement on intent when you call the judge and models have been moved, then it is where the models lie at the time the judge was called. I think there's like it just has to be where they are, where whatever it is. Because if there is a disagreement on intent, and intent has to be agreed upon by both sides, and yeah, I think that's just kind of it. Wherever the models are, if they haven't moved, say if it's a line of sight thing, and you've now moved your tank so it can see that unit and it can see that unit, I think it has to be given at that time. And then I do agree that you have to then go be a bit more vigilant to go around that table a bit more as a TO. And I think I'd even give a warning to both players as the TO, being like, hey, if this happens again and there's another discrepancy, you'll probably be given another warning. And then I would say yellow cards after that. I would actually go pretty aggressive with it, because if you're both trying to play by intent and then game intent at the same time, I think that's worthy of at least a warning the first time it happens. And if it happens again, I think you just get carded. Like if it happens twice in the same game that you both technically agreed upon something and then that changed later on, someone's trying to game this. It doesn't matter who, but a card goes both ways. I think it's both players would get carded in that, and like yellow carded. So which is just like a kind of slap on the wrist with a yellow card. It's nothing too serious, but it does mean that you'll be looked at more often. And that's because intent is so integral to competitive 40k that there has to be some sort of hard line where it comes to messing with intent.
Yeah, it's sort of social contract needs to be protected. You can't have it break down for others as well. I think flowing from that, what I would say is if you sort of suspect you're on the receiving end of something like that, where someone is, you think you've had agreed intent, and then someone goes back on their word and then calls a TO
Mm-hmm.
and sort of benefits from that. I think the unfortunate way of dealing with that is you just have to go back to, you can't fall back on intent, and you will need to pull out your widget and make sure that you are sort of, just to protect yourself, almost pull out your little, I am 1 inch away from the wall, you are 9.1 away, and you just have to actually play the board state as it is at that point. Yeah.
Depending on how many like judges or TOs that your event has, most of them only have one, but some do have multiples now, or even like a coach for another team. If you know people around that can that you can ask to hang around your table a bit more, but like, hey, like, just so this doesn't happen again, do you mind if we grab the coach from, even if it's their own team or another team, just someone to hang around and then just be that kind of voice in between. It's like, hey, I don't want you to give me anything that I don't explicitly say, but it's just to be that kind of background, like that, that third party effectively. A judge or a TO is obviously the best option here, but if there is like a bystander, especially someone that's not associated with either player necessarily, if you can get them around just to kind of be that, or even just float, or the other option is just call a TO over if it's an important thing, like, hey, this line of sight that is going to win or lose me the game. Get a TO over. Hey, if this unit moves here, can they see this line? Yes or no? No. Cool. Sweet. It's not like an agreed upon thing. That it's not intent. The judge has said that. That is how that plays. Cool. Good. Thank you. And go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I think that's
definitely. Yeah. This is tough though.
It is. It's a social contract game. I think it's the best we've had it in such a long time, and this is why like it's important to talk about it, because people need to know the facets of it. But there is also like the not so great side of it. It is surprisingly easy to weaponize, especially if you're new to it. Someone else can abuse it, and it can be very detrimental to you, right? Like, as you said, some people might be like, hey, my intent is to be 9 inches away from that, and you don't think to measure it because like, oh, they said they're 9 inches away, and they're actually 6.5 inches away, and they've netted 2.5 inches off you because because of that interaction. Same with like having your models right up against the wall but saying you're an inch away, but then on your movement phase moving them from right up against the wall, so you're gaining that 1.5 inches. Like all that kind of stuff. Like, yes, it can be abused, but if you be confident in yourself is, I think, one thing. is like, know that you're here to play 40k too, and then that intent has to go both ways. And know that if someone says like, hey, these guys are an inch away from the wall, walk around the table, look at them, like, hey, dude, they're actually up against the wall. Do you mind if we just like pull them back an inch? You know, just so they're roughly where they're supposed to be. We don't care if they're perfect, but they can be close.
Yeah, have to somewhat represent the board state. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess flowing on from that, if you're a newer player or you're someone that is sort of like, because there are some people out there in the NZ community that are sort of skeptical of intent. If that is you, I'd definitely give it a shot. Like I think there's more horror stories out there on the internet than you will encounter in real life.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's just important to communication is key kind of thing, and give it a go. Give intent a chance.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
as I said, like, yes, I did kind of go a bit grim there for a second, but like, I think I've had in all of my games, I've had like 2 bad instances of intent, and this is over 100 games, right? So it's like, it works most of the time. There is the occasional awkward moment that you'll have, but it'll be like 1 in 50 games, 1 in 30 games where you'll have like an awkward moment, and like, that's worth it for all your other games just being so much more chill. Like, and it'll make you play better. Like as Chad said, like, you'll play better, you'll learn faster, you'll get better at the game faster if you just play by intent, because your opponent will be playing better, and they'll be wanting you to play better, whether it be in a tournament game itself or in a practice game. Both of those, if you're playing at a higher level, the highest level that you can, you'll learn more and you'll get better faster and you'll prepare yourself.
You also make more friends because nobody likes someone who's gonna be like, "Nah, sorry, mate. I know you said this, but you're 0.2 inches away. Get fucked."
Yeah, exactly. Like, no one wants to play against, old Jimmy. Jimmy
Old
two
Jimmy.
cheats. Yeah, it's like, ugh. Yeah, don't be Jim. Don't be Jim. Is I guess what we can say there. But yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about with intent, right? Like, is there anything else we need to cover?
I don't think so. I think that's kind of the other thing I was talking to Pato about. I guess it's not really intent based, but there is that sort of like TO's conduct charter thing now
Oh, yeah.
where they can.
I can
there's
bring it up. Won't read through it, but I can show the people.
It doesn't really cover intent though. Like there's a few, as we like, I think, which is sadly rightly so, because as we said, it's hard to deal with as a TO. But I guess it does kind of cover some sort of like poor sportsmanship stuff, which intent could perhaps fall under. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is actually is kind of like a PSA thing. Is probably something worth bringing to people's attention. Purely for the fact that it means if you are going to an event that is sort of subscribed to this thing, which I know not all of them are, but a lot of the big clubs are, and if you do get a yellow card at one, you now have a yellow card at all of them.
Yep.
So yeah, not that we expect many people to be getting yellow cards. Like it hardly ever. I can't think of the last time it happened.
Yeah, it should be really rare, and the 40k community is really great. And again, 99% of people are really chill. Like, it's just that there's the very, very occasional bad egg, but it's incredibly rare. We're a great community that doesn't really need to we kind of fish out the bad players, I guess.
Yeah, that's why I had to move to Australia.
yeah, exactly. We could cut the bad ones.
Yeah.
Chad's asked about, have you guys chatted about stratagems, like gotcha type strat moments? I may have missed it. So we didn't really talk about stratagems, but I think it kind of goes into the point about like just letting your opponent know, like, hey, like it could be a reactive move or a reactive charge or a blood surge or something like that. It's just, if your opponent's setting up their movement phase, let them know, like, hey, if you're aiming to shoot this unit, remember they have a blood surge, or remember that, like, in 1 CP, put them back into the sky. Like, I know that's not really a thing anymore, but stuff like that. What are your thoughts on like stratagem use?
Stratagems is a nah, I never tell my opponent my strats. Nah. It's an interesting one because I would almost say it falls outside intent. It's more in that kind of like question asking phase where you
Mm,
ask your opponent, what are your stratagems? And if they do not tell you what their stratagems are or what they do, or they get that wrong, then that is an issue, but it's a separate issue. It's not intent.
yep.
Um maybe where it comes into intent is like we were saying, it's that say you have a blood surge stratagem and you've clearly explained you have a blood surge stratagem, and then your opponent shoots your unit with their bolt pistols, and then it's like a that's part of the sort of intent space where clearly your opponent probably didn't intend to be surged. Have you guys discussed that, or what are the players they're willing to do
Yep.
with that scenario? I did actually have something else that I wanted to. Oh yeah, I had a kind of a little anecdote about a friend of mine at a tournament very recently asked his opponent. He hadn't played Nids in a while, and he asked him what one of I think he asked him what a Neuro Tyrant did, and the guy went, "You'll find out next term." That's, that's,
Good.
this was an actual banger. Now every time he asks me one of my rules, I'm like, "You'll find out next term."
Yeah.
I wish I knew who it was that had said that to him. Some tournament player in Melbourne, if it's you, watch out.
Yeah.
Like, deranged, because you know what? He shadows next turn as well, and the Neurotarant is obviously the neg one to shadows army wide.
That's loose. Yeah, like that's
Yeah.
the opposite of intent, right? Like that's genuinely trying to hide your hand so you're to capitalize on your opponent's mistake. Uh,
Yes. Yeah. I would say that is cheating to my because like
it's that
that's not even intent. If your opponent asks you a rule and
yeah,
you refuse to tell them your rule, that is cheating.
yeah. I would agree with that. Like if you like there's this the weird thing like that the kind of dance that you do at the start of a game, right? Where you kind of talk about like, hey, like let's play this game by intent, like, hey, let's play on a clock. So what does your army do? Like what do you have any gotcha strats that I need to know about? What's the stick of your army? Like what are you trying to do? Whereas like when I was playing Wrath of the Rock, I was like, I'm durable and I can charge you on objectives. It's like that's kind of my thing. Like
Just grunt at your opponent pre-game. That's Chris move model.
yeah,
That
just start shadow boxing.
yeah, push-ups on the table, sweep the terrain.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. But no, yeah, it's like it's part. I think it's part of that. Like you want to go over your strats. Then I always give my opponents like one gimme, whereas like if I have like a gotcha strat, like the Wrath of the Rock one where you can 6-inch charge at the end of the charge phase, right? Like the first time that it would come up, like if they move something to flip an objective, like hey, remember, like I can do that. Like, oh, cheers, thank you. And I was like, I'm happy to keep reminding you, but again, it's that two-way street. If they then don't remind me of a strat that they have that does, something that's as impactful. Because like if I don't do that, if I don't say it, and they put their unit there, and I just get a free unit, like, and then also my Deathwing Knights
it's
are
like
like 8 inches further forward, like very
yeah,
big swing.
auto advance 8 Deathwing Knights. Yeah,
Yeah, so like stuff
scary.
like that was like I don't want to win the game because they forgot, but I also, like there is a point where I've let you know about this, this is a thing. If you're rushing, I'm probably going to remind you again because if you're a bit frazzled, like last game of I feel like last game of either day, I'm always a bit more generous as well with stuff like that. Like I'll definitely be like, hey dude, remember? Hey dude, remember? Because like I would want that again back on me as well, right? Like that last game, your brain's a bit frazzled, so.
Or short on clock time is another one. Like,
Mm,
yes, the clock exists for a reason, and you both want to have the same amount of time, but equally, like, say it's their bottom of 5, I'm done,
yeah.
and they have 30 seconds left.
All right.
I'm way more likely to collaboratively sort of be like, you don't want to do that because I will reactive, and that will cause you to lose, like all that kind of stuff. But you actually raise like with the amount of warnings you give people. I had like a friend of mine, again, continually going back to this Orcs game I played because not only was it the biggest dicing I've ever received, but it was one of the best opponents I've had in a while as well. So, but where he was playing Kilrig, which has a Horrend las cannon,
Hell yeah.
which he was reminding me of for the Overwatch. And I kind of kept forgetting about it because I was like, Kilrig, Overwatch, not real. and he reminded me of it a couple of times, and he said to me, which I think is fair enough. He's like, currently as canon, just so you know, like next time, like I probably will Overwatch you next time. I like he didn't say it this abrasively, but essentially like I've told you 4 times.
Yep.
It's on your head after this point, which is totally fair enough, and I think is also a good way of handling it to sort of almost cover your own ass, you know, because like you don't want to be perceived as gotchery, but you can't remind your opponent every single time
Yep.
of what you could. So maybe saying something like, you know, like give them the warning, give them another warning, and be like, hey man, or hey person, just so you know, um, I'm probably not going to remind you again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's the actually the really sporting way of doing it. Is like, hey, dude, this has happened 3 times now. I've letting you take it back every time. It's on you now. You now know this rule.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that kind of covers stratagems for the most part. Most stratagems don't really matter when it comes to intent. Like, I guess if you like try and be like, hey, do I survive this unit's attacks? What is the highest damage this can do? Like, do you have any damaging strats? But like, that's still on you to ask that question. Like, I wouldn't say it's a gotcha if I put this tank out and then I find out that my opponent has a +1 damage strat. It's like, oh, okay, well now I do actually die here. Like, if I even asked my opponent if they have that strat, that's kind of on me for not asking. It's not on my opponent to let me know.
There's like some of them, like, you know, like maybe if you have ignore mods and the whole premise of your unit is that it's like half damage. I don't know. But even that, maybe you should have asked about that. I think the only area where that falls into intent is if you were to, you know, you move out your half damage unit and you go, I'm putting this here because it's half damage and it's probably still going to be alive on the objective. And if your opponent then is sort of secretly twirling their moustache and going, hee, I have ignored, and doesn't, yeah,
yeah.
Then maybe that's an intent thing.
Yep.
But yeah.
I still think that's the kind of gray area a little bit. Like, it's so easy for you to be like, hey, like, is there any way you can buff this unit's damage? Like, because I would say ignore mods is buffing damage, right? So like if they have anything along those lines, they should then say it. And if they don't, then I would say it's more cheating than anything because they're holding rules from you.
If you've done the old, you'll find out next turn. Can you buff?
Man, I'm gonna use it. That's
find out next turn.
Yeah.
And then you go,
Dan needs to start using that when he plays Fulgrim. He's like, what does Fulgrim do? You'll find out next turn. It'll be nothing.
Yeah.
Gold.
That's what I used to tell people when you played Outlander Core. They'd be like, well, so what does your army do? A whole heap of nothing, but exceptionally well.
Yeah. No, that is Outlander Core to a T.
Does very good nothing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess that's probably us for this week then, right? I don't think there's anything else we need to cover. I think we've intented, we've explained our intent with intent. Yeah, sweet. Next week will be is next week pre for like before Christmas, or is that the week after?
I think it might be the week after, but it's like 5th December or something like that, eh?
Yeah. So it might be next week or the week after. Otherwise, we'll have some content for you no matter what. Like, that is, we will be here.
We will be here next week.
Yeah, we will be here next week. Whether we're just talking some dribble again or if we got some events to go over is for us to find out as well as you.
Yeah. You will find out next turn. Yep.
Yes, yeah. On next week's episode. But not yet. Let us know if there's anything else you want us to talk about. If you enjoyed this kind of like chat that we have, let us know. Like, that's what we want. We have the Facebook page now. You can chat to us through that, or just on like through the live chat or on the comments after this. Just let us know anything that you're enjoying, anything that you want to see, all that kind of stuff. Like, we are here for the people. So we will, if you guys ask for stuff, like, we will try to, like, we're trying to get the people on for events now. So like, the post event, we're actually trying to get, like, we got Courtney on the other week. We're trying to do that. Like, obviously it has to line up with our schedule as well, which is, I think, the trickiest part, but For the most part, we are going to try and do that kind of stuff. But if there's certain subjects you want us to talk about, just let us know.
Yeah, self-proclaimed man of the people, Chris Voss.
Yeah,
wants to
that
hear
is
your
me.
thoughts.
I will self-proclaim it every day because it is true. Anyway, yeah, that's us. Sweet. Enjoy yourself. Have another good week, everyone, and we'll catch you next week.